The cafe buzzed softly with mid-morning chatter and the sound of espresso machines hissing behind the counter. It was the kind of place where strangers brushed past one another without ever really seeing who sat across the tables. Yet that day, Ethan noticed her. She sat alone near the window. A young woman with dark hair tied loosely, her hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched for minutes. Her eyes didn't wander like most people's did. They stayed locked on the table, as if afraid of the world around her. Ethan had come there only to finish an email before a client meeting. But something about the way she kept glancing toward the door made him uneasy. That subtle panic that hides behind calm faces. A tall man entered, sharply dressed, carrying the confidence of someone who controlled more than he should. The woman straightened instantly, her spine rigid, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her coat. The man leaned down, said something Ethan couldn't hear, and the woman nodded quickly, forcing a smile. Ethan looked away, telling himself it was none of his business, until she looked up and their eyes met. For a single heartbeat, she silently pleaded with him, and he felt it, that invisible cry people carry when they're trapped but can't speak. He tried to focus on his laptop, but his gaze drifted back again and again. The man was talking in low tones, occasionally glancing around as if making sure no one listened. Ethan noticed a small folded napkin slide across the table toward him. The woman's hand trembled as she pretended to fix her hair, her eyes darting briefly to Ethan's. The napkin stopped near his elbow. He blinked, confused, then slowly unfolded it under the table. Only one word was written in shaky blue ink: help. Every sound in the cafe seemed to disappear. Ethan's pulse hammered as he looked up. She didn't move, didn't look at him again, just stirred her coffee with a lifeless rhythm. The man was still speaking, his expression tightening. Ethan's instincts screamed that this wasn't a misunderstanding. He reached for his phone, pretending to check messages, and discreetly typed a note: "Are you okay? Do you need help?" He slid his phone screen toward her as if showing a photo of his dog. She looked for half a second, then very subtly nodded. He couldn't just walk away. But what could he do without making it worse? He glanced at the cafe counter. 2 baristas, 1 elderly couple, a student reading in the corner. No one else seemed to notice. Ethan thought fast. He stood, grabbed his coffee, and on his way to the counter whispered to the barista, "That woman near the window might be in trouble. Call security quietly." "Don't look." The barista froze, eyes wide, then nodded slightly. Back at the table, the man's tone had sharpened. Ethan returned to his seat a few tables away, pretending to scroll through his laptop. The woman's hands were clenched in her lap now. Within minutes, 2 cafe security guards entered casually, pretending to restock sugar packets. The man noticed, muttered something angrily, and pulled the woman to her feet. Ethan's heart lurched. She winced when he gripped her wrist too tightly. Ethan stepped forward and, acting purely on impulse, said,
"Hey, Sophie!"
"Long time no see." The woman froze. The man turned sharply, suspicion flashing in his eyes. For a split second, Ethan feared he'd made a mistake. But then she caught on, blinking rapidly, and managed a small, nervous smile.
"Oh, hi,"
she said softly. "Ethan, right?" "Yeah," he said quickly, walking closer. "From university? Wow, it's been, 6 years?" He forced a laugh, keeping his voice steady. The man's grip loosened slightly as he looked between them. "You know him?" he asked, his tone firm. She nodded. "Yeah, old friend. We were just catching up, weren't we?" Ethan smiled faintly, reading the panic in her eyes. "Yeah, actually I was just about to grab another coffee. You joining me?" The man hesitated, studying Ethan. "We were leaving," he said curtly. Ethan looked at the woman, really looked, and saw tears threatening to surface. "Maybe just a minute," she whispered. "Please." That word, "please," cracked the air between them. The man sighed sharply and stepped aside. "Fine, 1 minute," he muttered, checking his phone. Ethan led her toward the counter, pretending to order another drink. She leaned close, voice trembling. "Thank you. You don't understand. I can't go back with him." "Who is he?" Ethan whispered. "My ex," she said, eyes darting behind them. "He won't leave me alone. I tried to move, change numbers. He finds me everywhere. I didn't know what else to do." Ethan felt a mix of anger and protectiveness rise in his chest. "You're safe now," he said softly. "We'll get you out of here." Just then, the man approached, impatience in his stride. Ethan motioned subtly to the barista, who nodded toward 2 uniformed officers entering from the side door. The man froze, realization dawning. "What's going on here?" he hissed. Ethan calmly said, "Just giving my friend a chance to breathe." The officers approached quietly. The man straightened, muttered something under his breath, and stormed out before they could question him. The moment he was gone, Sophie's shoulders collapsed. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Ethan guided her to a corner booth. She covered her face, whispering, "I didn't think anyone would notice. I just hoped." Ethan sat beside her. "You did the hardest thing," he said. "You asked for help." Her breath trembled. "I didn't even expect someone to read it. I thought maybe I'd disappear before anyone cared." He shook his head. "You're here. And that's what matters." For a while, they just sat in silence, the hum of the cafe soft around them. She finally looked up and smiled weakly. "Thank you, Ethan." He smiled back. "Anytime." And though neither of them knew it yet, that moment, a napkin and a whisper, would begin something far greater than either expected. 2 days later, Ethan still couldn't shake her face from his mind. The quiet fear in her eyes, the way her hands shook when she thanked him. He didn't know her story, only her first name, but something about her had left an imprint deeper than chance. He found himself back at the same cafe, half hoping and half dreading to see her again. And then she walked in. Sophie stood in the doorway for a moment, scanning the room cautiously before her gaze landed on him. When she realized he was there, her expression softened, relief flickering through the exhaustion on her face. She walked over slowly, clutching a small paper bag. "I wasn't sure if I'd see you again," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to." Ethan replied with a gentle smile. "How are you?" She hesitated, then sat down across from him. "Tired, but safer. My friend's letting me stay with her for now. I had to quit my job because he kept showing up." Ethan's chest tightened. "I'm sorry you're going through that." She looked down. "You don't need to be sorry. You already did more than anyone else did." Everyone saw Ethan. "People saw me scared. No one ever asked." He leaned forward. "Then maybe it's time someone does. Tell me what happened." For a long moment, she said nothing. The city sounds outside filled the silence. Cars passing laughter from a nearby table, the faint melody of a street guitarist. Then she began, voice low but steady. "I met Daniel 2 years ago," she said. "He was charming. You know, the kind of man who knows what to say, how to make you feel like you're the only person in the room. It was perfect for a while. Then little things started changing. He'd question where I was going, who I texted, what I wore. It was subtle at first, controlling disguised as care. And I let it happen because I thought maybe that's love. Maybe I just needed to be better." Her eyes glistened as she spoke. "Then one day he snapped, yelled at me in front of his friends, said I embarrassed him. After that, it was like living in a glass box. Everything I said or did could shatter it. I tried to leave 3 times. He'd always find me. He made me believe I couldn't survive without him." Ethan's hands curled around his mug. "You don't owe him your fear anymore," he said softly. "You're stronger than you think." She gave a sad smile. "You sound like my sister. She used to say that too." "Used to?" he asked gently. "She moved abroad last year," she said. "I stopped talking to everyone because he didn't want me to. I didn't even realize how small my world had become until the day you saw me." Ethan looked at her for a moment, admiring the quiet strength beneath her words. "Then let's start by making your world bigger again." She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" He smiled. "You're a photographer, right?" Her eyebrows lifted. "How did you?" He pointed to the camera strap peeking from her bag. "You carry it everywhere, even when you're scared. That tells me it's not just a hobby." She laughed softly, the first real laugh he'd heard from her. "You notice everything, don't you?" "Only the things that matter," he said. Her smile faded into something gentler. "It's been months since anyone asked about my photography. I used to do small exhibitions, street portraits. I wanted to tell people's stories through pictures. But Daniel said it wasn't practical, that no one cared." Ethan leaned forward. "Then prove him wrong." She blinked. "What?" "I work in marketing," he said. "My company does campaigns for local artists. You could showcase your work. I can help." Her eyes widened. "Ethan, I can't just—" "Yes, you can," he interrupted softly. "You just need one person to remind you that your voice still matters." Sophie looked away, swallowing hard. "You really think I can do it?" He smiled. "I don't just think it. I know it." That moment, that quiet belief from a stranger, cracked something open inside her. For so long she had survived on fear, but now someone believed she could live again. Over the next few weeks, they met often, sometimes at the cafe, sometimes at the park near the river where she liked to take photos. Each time, she looked a little less afraid, a little more like herself. One evening, as the city lights flickered on, Ethan found her sitting on a bench, camera in hand. "Catching sunsets again?" he asked. sitting beside her. She smiled faintly. Trying to. They never look as good on camera as in real life. He glanced at her, the fading sunlight painting gold across her face. Some things aren't meant to be captured, he said. They're meant to be felt. Her breath caught slightly at his words. For a second, she looked at him differently, like she was seeing him for the first time. Then she looked away quickly. You always know what to say. He laughed. Not always. But sometimes words just show up when they're meant to. She smiled again quietly. You know, when I slipped that napkin, I didn't think anyone would even look. And now here we are, talking about sunsets. Ethan looked down, then leaned closer, his voice soft. When you asked for help, you didn't just save yourself. You gave someone else a reason to believe that people still care. She met his eyes, warmth filling her chest. You don't even know me. He smiled. Maybe not yet, but I'd like to. For her heart fluttered. The kind of feeling she thought she'd lost forever. That night, as she walked home, Sophie realized something had changed. Fear was still there, but hope had returned, and for the first time in a long time she wasn't running, she was moving forward. Weeks turned into months, and Sophie slowly began to rediscover herself. The girl who once walked with her head down now carried a camera and a quiet fire in her eyes. Each photo she took became a small rebellion against the version of herself she'd been forced to be. Ethan never pushed her, he was just there. A steady presence in her unpredictable days. Sometimes they would talk for hours about everything and nothing. Other times they'd sit in silence, watching the city breathe. And even in those quiet moments, Sophie felt something rare, safety. Ethan had his own story, though he rarely talked about it. She knew he'd left a high-paying corporate job to start his own small marketing firm. I wanted to build something honest, he said once. Something that makes people feel, not just buy. That sentence stayed with her, like a mirror to what she wanted to do with her art. Tell stories that made people feel seen. One chilly evening in early winter, Ethan invited her to an art fair downtown. I know it's short notice, he said over the phone, but one of my clients canceled a display slot. I think your photos deserve that space. Her heart stopped. Ethan, no, I can't. Yes, you can, he said, calm but firm. I've seen your photos. They're powerful. They deserve light. She hesitated, pacing her tiny apartment. What if people don't like them? He smiled through the phone. Then they're not your people. But someone out there will see them and feel less alone. Isn't that worth the risk? She was silent for a long moment, then whispered, okay. The following days were a blur. Ethan helped her print and frame the photos, carefully selecting the ones that told her journey. Fragments of pain and rediscovery captured in quiet corners of the city. A reflection in a rain-soaked window. A woman walking alone beneath streetlights. A pair of hands reaching for sunlight through blinds. When the night of the exhibition arrived, Sophie stood frozen at the edge of the room, clutching her coat. The gallery buzzed with strangers. Art lovers, photographers, critics. She wanted to disappear. Ethan found her there, pale but determined. Hey, he said softly, adjusting the small name card beneath her display. Sophie Marant, resilience. She stared at it, her voice trembling. I don't feel resilient. He looked at her, eyes kind. You don't have to feel it. You are it. And somehow, those words gave her enough strength to step forward. As people wandered through the gallery, Sophie stood quietly nearby, watching them study her photos. Some lingered longer than she expected. A few even wiped their eyes. She didn't realize she was crying until Ethan gently handed her a tissue. They understand, he whispered. You told the story beautifully. When the night ended, one of the organizers approached her. Your work's raw, honest. People connect with it. We'd love to feature you again next month. Sophie stood speechless, her hands shaking. Ethan smiled beside her, proud but humble. Told you someone would see what I saw, he said. Outside, the winter air bit at their cheeks as they walked down the quiet street. The city lights shimmered in puddles from the earlier rain. She stopped suddenly, turning to him. Why do you keep helping me, Ethan? He looked at her for a moment, then said simply, because once someone did the same for me. She blinked. You, he nodded. Years ago, I was in a job that drained me. I lost someone I loved. I forgot who I was. One day, a stranger sat next to me on a park bench and said, you don't have to live like you're surviving. You're allowed to live like you're alive. It sounds simple, but it changed everything. Maybe I'm just passing that kindness forward. Sophie looked down, tears threatening again. I think maybe you just changed my everything too. He smiled, brushing her cheek gently. Then promise me something. What? She whispered. No matter what happens, no one gets to decide your worth ever again. Not me, not anyone. You keep creating, you keep shining, even when it's hard. She nodded, a tear slipping free. I promise. And then he leaned closer, voice barely above the whisper of the wind, and said the words that would stay with her forever. You were never broken, Sophie. You were just waiting to be seen. Those words hit deeper than any declaration of love ever could, because in that moment, she realized what she truly needed all along. Not rescue, but recognition. They stood there silent, as snow began to fall, fragile, fleeting, and beautiful. That night, Sophie went home and looked at her reflection in the mirror. For the first time, she saw not the woman who had begged for help on a napkin, but the woman who had answered that call herself.